Yo, tuned in, it's that time again. Welcome to the show under the bright zen. Just another messenger bringing the news with the beat in your soul. Let's light up these views. We're diving deep, no time for snooze. Grab your headphones, let me share the clues. In a world so loud, where voices collide, we find the rhythm, let the truth be our guide. Hit that play button, feel the vibe. Every second counts, let's take that ride. From stories untold to laughs we share. Just another messenger, we're always there. Hi. It's a jam, just sit back and unwind. With our flow and our style, it's one of a kind. Life's a mix, just like a DJ spins. We serve you the truth where the journey begins. It's a jam, we're all in this together. Sound waves linking us, no matter the weather. Just another messenger, we keeping it tight. With every single drop, we rise and ignite. Yeah.
Good day. I'm your host, Tamara L., and welcome to another installation of Just Another Messenger, where we raise the situational urgency and consciousness regarding today's current events. We'll dive deep into the historical past by examining the philosophies, legal system, and political decisions that continues to influence our daily lives. So please join the conversation during the episode. Your comment matters. Hit the subscribe, share, and like button to be a part of more thought-provoking conversation in the future. You wouldn't want to miss it. And don't forget to visit our website at www.justanothermessenger.com that connects you to all our social feeds, online merch store, and our link to support the work via Cash App at $JustAnotherMessenger. So let's get started. All right. Good evening. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to our live segment of Just Another Messenger after 2 weeks of our break or of our holiday break. I'm your host, Tamara L., and this is the episode Zoo-Nited, States of America. Now let's look at this. Let's look at this as a place where everyone is told they're free, but every role is assigned. Every movement is monitored, and every benefit comes with a condition. Now, if that sounds familiar, it should, because that's the United States that we live in today. Okay, now, because this isn't just a movie metaphor, it's the operating system of the United States of America. Now, Zootopia wasn't a children's film, so don't think that all. Over the holidays, I had the opportunity to go and look at Zootopia 2 and analyze it. And let me tell you, this is not just a children's film about animals learning to get along. No, it's not that. It was a blueprint. It was a city design and order, obedience, and the quiet management of power. Now, this dealt with the predators, it dealt with prey, and a system that tells both they're equal as long as they stay in their lane. Sound familiar, huh? So tonight, what we're going to do, we're going to be tracing how that system then started in Hollywood. No, it did not start in Hollywood, but Hollywood will always give you a message in a movie of what's going on in today's current event. It started within a European charter, and we're going to dive deep into that European charter, because now you're going to be able to understand when you click on the mainstream media, you're going to be able to understand the talking points of this United States of America corporation and how it operated 249, almost 250 years ago, and how that operation that was set up, that business model was set up, how that business model is operating today. Now, this is a document that named this land, not a nation, but a business. It named it by adventurers and planters, as well as investors and operators. We're going to look at that. And from that moment forward, America wasn't built for people. It was built for profit, paper, and control. Sounds familiar, huh? It should. So if you've ever wondered, or if you're wondering why the land doesn't feel like it's really yours, why citizenship feels more like a subscription, why power always seems to just have a seat just out of reach of you, stay with me. Stay with me because we're going to unpack this. We're going to do something a little different because once you see the zoo, you'll never confuse if you have your freedom again. You'll never be confused about that, and you'll never question that. So what we're going to do, we're gonna check in and out real quick and before we get started. All right, I'm back. All right, now I know it's been 2 weeks, and some of these control boards is like you got to get familiar with them and see how they work again. It's a lot to get started with. We're going to do something a little different here. What we're going to do first, we're going to go ahead and put our information up, how you continue to support the channel. Like you can continue to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get those subscription numbers up. Very excited about the organic growth. And also we're trying to reach our milestone of 10,000 views. Very excited about that. So continue to like, share, and subscribe over on our YouTube page at Just Another Messenger, as well as we're on X at JAM _404 podcast. And if you or someone you know would like to be a part of the show, please send a friendly email to justanothermessengerpodcast at gmail.com. And thank you for your support in the past, and thank you for your continuous support. Now you continue to do that to keep this alternative media alive via our Cash App at $ Just Another Messenger. All right, now I'm gonna remove that, and we'll put that up periodically throughout the show. But what we're gonna do something a little different also. If you see over in comments, it's gonna say join the conversation. The only way you're gonna be able to do that if you're over on our YouTube page where you can join the conversation. If I see where you have came into the studio after we're talking about some elements of things, you'll be able to join the conversation. Now, I know over the past 2 weeks, there's been a lot going on in this in this society that we have, as well as the service corporation in which that is overseeing the society. I mean, from the financials to the from the securities, which deals with the silver, which deals with birthright citizenship. It seemed like that information is still ramping up with ICE agents still out, got boots on the ground and taking care of that mandate. And also you have situations that took place and still taking place today that deals with fraud, as far as daycare fraud with the Minnesota situation that's going on up in Minnesota. Now, one of the things we've watched over several couple of months that we're dealing with now, this has been beefing up for a couple of months, where you're dealing with the minor conflict with, I'll say, Venezuela and the United States. And we all know that's dealing with the oil. It deals with the oil, because this information has been going on since 2024 with the oil reserves, contracts with various other nations, and right in the United States is losing its stronghold as far as being a favorable financial nation because of the geopolitical connections that taking place within the BRICS. So the BRICS are ramping up. The British, Russian, they're ramping up. China, they are ramping up their financial foundation and with their BRICS pay. And now it's getting to the point with, you have Ukraine and you have Russia. It's like United States had to abandon that fight in support of Ukraine against Russia in order to find financial ways to try to keep the United States afloat, even with the shutdown that occurred. And we have the domestic issues that are going on within, where you have food scarcity, you have increased costs in supplies, goods, and services such as gas, food, and things of that nature. So not only do United States has its issues internally, domestically, we also have the internal the foreign conflicts that are taking place as well. Like I said, Ukraine, Russia. Then you also have Israel, as well as the conflict with Israel and Palestine. At one point in time, there was should have been a ceasefire, which was shortly. So thank you. We have our first responders coming in. We have Malik Day. Yes, peace, love, and light to all. Like I said, we're going to do something a little different. It's going to be a little bit more conversationally. We're going to highlight and go over some points without the PowerPoint. I just want to I want to do a little different thing here so we can kind of talk this information through to get a little bit more understanding without heavy on the PowerPoint this time, because I know the information must be conveyed out in a way to be able to help you identify what mainstream media is talking, what they're not saying also, and in reference to understanding the business model of the United States. I know a lot of times we hear this a lot of times, and as you can see on here, I did put a link in. If you like to join in the show, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to invite you in, and we're going to have a conversation as we go along. Now, I know a lot of times you hear along threads and feeds where people will say, well, United States is a corporation. And they will show you the IRS code of the United States is a corporation. Now, that statement that United States is a corporation is right and exact. Correct. That is right and exact. United States is definitely a corporation. Correct. Now we have to let's look at what type of corporation that United States is. Now we're gonna go forward and then we're gonna go backwards with this in order to make the full scope connection. Now in 2026, if you're building a corporation and within the state model of where you reside or not, because there's other ways you can go by incorporating a business. Okay, you can do that by way of you can create either a you can create a LLC, a limited liability corporation. You can have a sole proprietary corporation, which is one single member. You can have a S corporation, which is mostly shareholders and board members and things of that like. And you can have a LLP, a limited liability partnership. You can have also a unincorporated association, and you can have a trust corporation. So the foundation of a corporation can be set up in today's method in several ways. But let's reverse corporations and how they were formed when it came to moving in a jurisdiction over land. So that is a totally different form of corporation. Now we're going to look at, in order to do that, we're going to look and examine the treasurers and company of adventurers and planters of the city of London for the colony in Virginia. I'm going to say that again. We're going to look at the treasurer and company of adventurers. Now, the word adventurers is the name for investors, and planters is another name for the human capital, the people in the city of London for the first colony of Virginia. Yes, like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much, Leek. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at this. We're going to look at this framework of the corporation that was set up for that time period. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen here. And of course, it will act crazy. All right, let me. All right, it will get there. It's always when you go live, it start acting crazy. All right. All right, here we go. I guess it's started working now. Let me move myself out the way. All right, let's look at this. Let's look at this in detail. We're going to go over this. And we're going to take our time with this. Let's look at the charter, the treasurer. Let's look at here. Let's look at the treasurer and company of adventurers and planters of the city of London for the first colony in Virginia. Let's look at this in its entirety. Now, this is when you're dealing with contracts, and even with the business, when you're incorporating today's business, it deals with the contract model. Let's look at the contracting party here. Now, as you can see here, the contracting party is Queen Elizabeth by her letters patent. Now, what is a letters patent? This letter patent is the licensing agreement, which is the legal framework of the charter to set up the business corporation. Now, this has occurred back on March the 25th, 1584, and the license were given to Sir Walter Raleigh to search for remote heathen lands not inhabited by Christian people. So when they say United States is a Christian nation, that is a lie, because the corporation for the first colony, the first corporation, Virginia, it was to grant the search for the remote heathen lands not inhabited by Christian people, that was not connected to Christendom, and granted him in fee simple all the soil within 200 leagues of the places where his people should be within 6 years. So this was a 6-year contract, which Queen Elizabeth granted the license to Sir Walter Raleigh for the corporation. And that was to make their dwellings or abidings reserving only to herself and her successors their alliance and 1/5 part of all the gold and silver, or they should obtain. Okay, now let's fast forward that to from 1584 to 2026. Now this goes straight into the understanding of the conflict between the United States and Venezuela, where there was a contract in which that was signed, in which there was supposed to be a transfer of silver and oil, and Venezuela at that time also contracted with other nations such as Russia and China, but they contracted with Russia and China in a different pay model system other than the dollars. So, okay, so now we're going to look at that. Now let's look at how at the time with this contract with Queen Elizabeth, as you can see, she said, and Sir Walter immediately sent out the ships which visited Wakacom Island in North Carolina, and the next year he dispatched 7 with 107 men who settled in Roanoke Islands, about latitude 30 degrees 50 longitude. All right, now we're going to skip down. We're going to skip down and we're going to go right here to where it say, let's go right here where it say they landed hereafter at, and we're going to go right here. We're going to go right here where it say they landed hereafter at Hatteras. Now in 1588, when a fleet was ready to sail with a new supply of colonists and necessities, they were detained by the Queen to assist against the Spanish Armada. Now, Sir Walton having now expended 40,000, which means that was his Sir Walter Raleigh had expensed out in an investment 40,000 lire. That's that's what the L stand for, in this enterprise, which means this business venture, and it was obstructed occasionally by the crown without a shilling of aid from it, which means the government did not aid in this adventure, and Sir Walter Raleigh was losing, he was losing money. So just imagine if you fast forward now to the contract that took place between Russia and China, which they are paying Venezuela through the BRIC system. United States in their investment is losing money because it's not being paid on a dollar system. So now that is less money of the dollar circulation that is being taken place. Now, so this has to all do with contracting and investments. So as you can see here, and it was a necessary, it was under a necessity of engaging others to adventure their money. See, the word adventure means to invest their money. He therefore by deed bearing dated the 7th of March 1589 by the name of Sir Walter Raleigh. He was the chief governor, all right, of Asamac, wait a minute, let me get that word right. Asamacomac, probably a comac. We're gonna hope we got that right. All right. So as you can see here, we're gonna. I just want to show you how the charter. This was a charter, as we said. This was a charter of a lattice patent by the Queen Elizabeth of 15 on March the 25th, 1584, that were the license were given to Sir Walter Raleigh to search for remote heathen lands not inhabited by Christian people, and granted to him in fee simple all the soil, 200 leagues of the places where his people should within 6 years. This was a 6-year license. All right. Now there's some things that took place, and we're going to look at the second charter of Virginia. And this charter was in 1609, and this charter was given to, I hope you can see that. Let me see if I can get that up. All right, let's see if we can get that up here. I'm going to take it down a little bit. All right, that's good. All right, let's look at the second charter. This second charter was built upon the first Virginia charter. Remember, we said Sir Walter Raleigh only had the charter for 6 years. By extending the lands granted to the Virginia Company sea to sea from the Atlantic to the Pacific, it also included a list of all the Virginia Company's investors. All right. So those who want to understand are going to understand this and be able to move properly, knowing that you are operating within a business structure, because there's a lot. Let me tell you what's taking place here. Let me tell you what's taking place. Let me get back on the screen. A lot of people are under the assumption where there's conversation where it's talking about, my government. Well, newsflash. We don't have a government. We have a service corporation that service the people for services that are due within the jurisdiction in which the land in which they're being occupied. And those services must be rendered due to the people when it's asked upon the people, when the people know the power of executing, being able to make sure that the representatives that they have put in place to adhere to the demands of the people and the will of people or take place. That's when the society is prosperous. So along the way, there's been a changing of guard of understanding the role of the people and the role of the service corporation to the people. So yes, so yes, basically BRICS friendly. Yeah, BRICS is the friendly country. Um, with Venezuela. So you have these corporations, you have these business corporations that are in conflict with one another that's taking place. So we have to look at this from a business strategic perspective because that is the perspective in which they are operating in. They're definitely operating in that perspective in which to be able to do business. So one of the things as a people in doing business, we are not, and we're the beneficiaries of of this business model called the United States of America. We have become the business model through the human capital, through tax acquiescence, through willful participation. And now if you're going to participate in a society and you have a service corporation running that society, you have to understand what you're participating in. Now, I know for years what I'm seeing online, I'm starting to see a lot of people parrot and get the information out that the Moors have been saying for years. And that information has definitely been right and exact. It's talking about standing, where it's talking about status, because status matters. It definitely matters. And it talks about when it's talking about birthright citizenship and things of that nature. Now, you hear a lot of information now online on Reels that's talking about tax as well as taxation, as well as home ownership, as well as letters patent. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into how there was a lot, and there was a lot of people that were attacked about the information that was being put out. A lot of people also lost their lives trying to teach people and to get understanding, to get in law, to get upright, to be able to understand what was going on from a law perspective, from a language perspective, from a national standing perspective, and what has occurred. So you can be in right standing to not, so your rights, your divine rights will not be leaned upon. And I know for myself personally, I've been in rooms, I've been in civic organization where the teaching has been about sovereignty, about status, about nationality, about taxation, about the law, understanding those things, about understanding the difference between lawful versus legal, about also understanding the difference between being a secured in your party, about public versus private jurisdiction. I've been in those rooms that has talked about that for years. So, and I'm glad to see in 2026 that it is taking headways in the Twitter space. It's taking headways in the even on YouTube. People are the consciousness is opening up about, wow, on both ends. Oh, I didn't realize that. I too, the Albions are starting to see that they too are under the same cloak of oppression. And they're saying they're calling for a no taxation exemption to start taking place on people labor, because it is definitely unconstitutional and not to file taxes. So you see and then you also have the youth. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You also have the youth that are starting to understand the historical impact that has taken place with this business model, and how this business model has took the land from the Aborigines that has been reclassified as now Negro, Black, colored, African American, Indian, and things of that sort. You have also the youth starting to really understand, understand, overstand, and unpack the messages that has went out, and now it's being is wide open. The information is open. So it's at this point, if people are not do not if they don't want to adhere, if they don't want to adhere to the messages that are going out, they're it's that time. We're in that space now of a great recess where you're just going to be food for the fodder. That's it. The time to be able to protect you and to be able to say, oh, ignorance is bliss. That time is no more. Ignorance is no longer bliss. To not know is, you can't hide from blissfulness. You can't hide from um, bread and circus events such as going to games, watching football, watching basketball, um, being engaged in things that has that doesn't serve you and help your family and help society break free from this oppression. That's no more. That time period has ended, because we're now at a time period where, that's correct, lawyers are definitely not going to help, because even the lawyers, which stands for the it's understood now that they too themselves has operated in a fraud. They have been under the British accredited registry, which is the bar. That's what BAR. They've been under a membership, and their membership wasn't not an allegiance to the United States. Their membership was an allegiance to the British crown. So that information within itself is coming out at this time. So it's no longer a time period about, like I said, ignorance is bliss. So I wanted to, now we're going to look at this. Now we're going to go back to this letter patent. We're going to go back to the second one, where this one was given in May the 23rd of 1609. It was given to James, by the grace of God, King of England, Scott, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith, and to all to whom these presents shall come greetings, whereas at the humble suit and request of sundry, that means different, our loving and well disposed subjects, intending to deduce a colony and to make habitations and plantation of sundry, that means different, are people in the part of America commonly called Virginia, all right, and other parts and territories in America, either appertaining unto us, unto which are not actually possessed of any Christian prince or people within certain bounds and region, we have formerly by letters of patent bearing date the 10th day of April in the fourth year of our reign of England, France, and Ireland, and Scotland in the ninth and 30th. Now, this was granted, this letter of patent by James. Remember, the first one was from the first letter of patent, as it shows, is from Queen Elizabeth to Sir Walter Raleigh. Now, his patent, like I said, was 6 years. Now, this second letter of patent for the colony of Virginia, it was given from James. Now, the monarch has changed hands. It was by James, by the grace of God, the King of England. It was given to, let's see who this contract was given to. Now, this contract was given to Sir Thomas Gates, Sir George Somers, and others for the more speedy accomplishment of the said plantation and habitation, that they should divide themselves into two colonies. The one consisted of diverse knights, gentlemen, merchants, and the others of our city of London, called the first colony, and the other consisting of diverse knights, gentlemen, and others of our cities of Bristol, Exeter, and town of Plymouth, and other places, called the second company. See, they divided up the people. So this is where they classes. Now they divided into a class structure, and have yielded and granted in any sundry privileges and liberties to each colony for their quiet settling and good government therein, and by the same letters patent more at large apparent. Okay, so as you can see, that was the contract of 1609. Then you have the third contract, the third charter of Virginia. As you can see down, this one was given to James. And this was a perpetuity for the first colony in Virginia. You have to remember, these contracts have to continue to build. This is a business that was set up. It's just as, let's look at it this way, just as Walmart set up their organization if it was set up through a monarch, they can't just lay it down and leave it empty. Okay, now, as I'm saying that, you have to understand, I'm saying that for a reason. I'm come back on. Now, with the corporation, the colony corporations that were set up from 1500, and then all the way, we're going to take those colony contracts that were given throughout all the different 13 different colonies, as we know of, all the way from Massachusetts to the last one down in the area known as Georgia, the 13 charter colonies that were provided. And then we're going to go into that. We're going to go into that shortly, but I'm going to have to show you that. Now, if you fast forward to today, and people are saying, well, they just need to leave. They just need to leave and go back home. Well, as you can see, those inhabitants expatriated, those ancestors, those Slavic ancestors, they expatriated out of their home country. They expatriated out of their home country, which means they gave up their subject, being a subject to the kings of England. They're no longer, the ancestors are no longer subjects, and they expatriated to the United States or the Virginia colony, the New York colony, the Pennsylvania colony. They expatriated to America, to the various different colonies, which means, what are you saying, Tamara? I'm saying they don't have a home to go back to unless they have to now give up their citizenship status, their subject status of the United States, in order to be received back as descendants of the ancestors into the jurisdiction of where the different Slavic nations that their ancestors came from. And a lot of those Slavic nations have been confederated into larger bodies of nations. So it's not as simple as they just need to just pack up and leave, because when in a corporation, also, when you're talking about a governmental corporation of governance, let's just look at it, let's talk about it like that. A corporation of governance cannot just say closed out of business, because you have people here. You have people here that requires service, right? Because there's a word for that, and the word is that they cannot the governance of the corporation cannot leave the land interrectum. Write that down. There's a word for that. The word is interrectum. They cannot leave the land. The governance of the corporation cannot leave the land interrectum, because the people that are subjects, that have become subjects to the United States. Thank you very much. Look, I have my assistant at play. Thank you, baby. So the service corporations cannot leave the land of governance interrectum, because unfortunately the people has been under great oppression, under usurpation, and the people do not understand the foundational governance systems to be able to stand up and govern themselves. The people have not stepped forward as a body politic in Aborigine. I'm not talking about natives. I'm not talking about the Siberian natives, the pretendians. I'm talking about the Aborigines that has been misclassified as Black, Negro, colored, African American, Indian, has not confederated within their cultural understanding and created a body politic of a constitution. Okay, Tamara, we have the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. We have the Moorish, Moroccan. Yes, but the people has not united culturally under a ban of constitution and has representatives in place by the people to stand up and be of governance for their own society. That's the downfall that's the downfall as the Aboriginal people face today, not being in formation. I know Beyonce said get in formation and she was talking about a dance. I'm talking about being in formation of governance. Our people have not put themselves in a position of governance to govern themselves, which means that the current occupiers, colonizers, cannot just pack up and leave. Interact. It will leave the people and interact them, and not being in it, and then society will become lawless. So we're gonna look at this. We're gonna look at this third charter. It talks about the perpetuity for the first colony in Virginia, dated the 12th of March, 1611. Now, once again, sorry, this was given by James, as you can see, by the grace of God, England, Scotland, difference, and Ireland, defender of the faith. To all to whom these presents shall come greeting, whereas the humble suit of divers and sundry are loving subjects, as well as adventurers, as planters of the first colonies. So we're going to look at that word investors as planters. That means subjects of the first colonies in Virginia and for the propagation of the Christian religion. Now, this is where they started introducing the Christian religion and reclaiming a people barbarous to the civility and humanity. This is where they started the introduction of the Christian religion in 1611. This is about 100 years after the King James Version. It said, we have our letters patent bearing date at Westminster, the 3rd and 20th day of May, in the 7th year of our reign of England. Difference in Ireland and the 2 and 40th of Scotland, given and granted unto them that they shall all such and so many of our loving subjects as should from time to time forever after be adjoined with them as planters or adventurers in the same plantation and their successors forever. Forever. So this is where now it goes from a letters patent. It goes from a letters patent of a license to now they have given them royal charter colony status, which means that from that time period, we're going to move over here to after all of the when all of the colonies was now settled. I'm trying to blow that up. When all the colonies were settled. Okay, there it is. All right, let's see that. When all the colonies were settled and they no longer wanted to be under the King of England, under the crown, this is what they did. They made a proclamation in 1776. We're going to look at that because the 1776 benchmark is very important. Now, these charter holders, these royal charter holders, after they no longer wanted to be a part under the British crown because it was about taxation, they were not being represented in their charter business, in their affairs. So they no longer wanted to be up under the British crown. So they all united under a banner and they formed a constitution. They all confederated. They went on a campaign to confederate or die. And they also, if you see the flag, they created a flag, the yellow base flag, the yellow field flag with the star, with the serpent of the snake coiled around, and it said, "Don't tread on me." That was a campaign because their king was treading on them through taxation. All right. Their king was treading on them through taxation. So during that time period, they said, okay, we no longer want to be under the king of England. So they made a proclamation in 1776. This proclamation is very important because a proclamation does not give the authority of being a nation. They had to go to war for that. So these are American wars and the French wars that took place. These are 7-year wars that took place. And once these wars took place, it became very taxing on England. Now, as we're seeing today, let's fast forward. We have the wars of Ukraine. We have the wars of against Russia, in which the United States is funding the war to Ukraine. We have the war of Israel. We have the war against the Palestinian, which the United States is funding the war of Israel. And now you have the possibility of war with Venezuela, in which there's a possibility that Cuba could come into the aid for Venezuela, or it could be Russia, or it could be China to protect their interests because they have prepaid in their contract for natural resources in which that is due from Venezuela. So, as you can see, in 1776, the United States and its proprietors, their forefathers, no longer wanted to be under the oppression of the King of England, and it came to just wars. But there's things that took place where they utilized the Aboriginal nations to help them to get off under the oppression, the cloak of oppression from their king. And you can look at treaties such as the 1778 Delaware Treaty with the Moors. It talked extensively how the Aboriginal nations came into aid for the proprietors and helped them in their fight against their own king to come off in the oppression because of the high taxation. So here we are, 200, we're almost on the cusp of the 250-year mark, which is going to take place July the 6th, July the 4th of 2026, when they're going to be so in honor to celebration. This is our 250-year independence. But let's hold off to that. It's not their 250-year independence. It's just their 250-year of proclamation that they wanted independence. And let's look at that. All right. Let's look at that. Let's look at what gave them their independence. It was called the Treaty of Paris of 1783 that afforded their independence. And this happened where the Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3rd, 1783, between the American colonies. At that time, there was only 13 American colonies and Great Britain, and it ended the American Revolution and formally recognized the United States as an independent nation. So, people, it was not July the 4th of 1776 that afforded United States, because they were not called United States, they were called just the 13 different colonies. It was the Treaty of Paris of 1783 that afforded those 13 colonies to become independent nation. Now, the American Wars of Independence of 1775 to 1783 was actually a world conflict. Now, when we say world conflict, we're talking about a conflict with Aboriginal nations because they needed the jurisdictional occupation. So this is why I said it was a world conflict involving not only United States and Great Britain, but also France, Spain, and the Netherlands. So the peace process brought a new sense United States into the arena of international diplomacy, playing against the largest and most established powers on earth. Now, and how did they were able to do that? Because they had the backing of the Aborigine nations that aided them for their freedom. That's the part that's not talked about. It said the three American negotiators, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Jay, proved themselves ready for the world stage, achieving many of the objections sought by the new United States. Two critical provisions of the treaty were British recognition of U.S. independence and the delineation of boundaries that will allow for American Western expansion. It said the treaty is named for the city in which it was negotiated and signed, the Treaty of Paris. This last page bears the signature of David Hartley, who represented Great Britain, and the three American negotiators who signed their names in alphabetical order. Okay, say multiple treaty documents, however, can be considered as original, and in this case, United States and British representatives signed at least three originals. Now let's go down here see who they're talking about. Now, as you can see, let's look at Article 1. Let's look at Article 1 right here, which talk about His Britannic Majesty acknowledges the said United States, viz. VIZ, means including all. That was it. New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island and Providence plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. It don't say California because that was not a part of the United States. It doesn't say any other states. These 13 colonies was the only United States of 17. That was it. To be free, sovereign, and independent states, that he treats with them as such, and for himself and heirs and successors relinquishes all claims to the government, proprietary and territorial rights of the same in every part there is. Okay, now when we say territorial rights, we're talking about jurisdiction of a license, a business. That's what we're talking about. We're back at understanding the business of the United States. We're back to that model because if that's not being made plain, I think you may have missed the understanding of this whole entire segment. All right. So in 1783, the king relinquished, the King of England, which had the jurisdictional territorial rights of the colony area that encompasses the 13 colony areas. That territorial rights, and you have to go into the charters, each charter. It wasn't what you see today, the entire state line of that. It was sometimes just could have been like you say 10 square miles by 10 square miles or 100 square miles by 100 square miles. It was a small piece in each colony area in which the crown relinquishes its territorial licensing to do business rights to those 13 colonial states only. All right. So, yeah, I'm looking at the notes here. It say U.S. can't do an audit. It's for absolutely, So what, like you see the argument about the Pentagon and the IRS. These are I call them red herring conversations. And if you look up the word red herring means distraction. These are distractions conversations that are taking place. That are very baseless, because as a service corporation, now I will tell you that what do they call? Other corporations are not going to open their, certain departments. When you look at the framework of a corporation, all departments are not revenue producing departments. Some departments absorb costs, just operational administrative costs, and there's not an audit for that department because they're there just as an administrative support arm. And you have some department that produce revenue. So the argument about the Pentagon and not passing the audit is a very mute argument, because we're talking about the foundational structure and framework of a corporation. So they will allow the people to have those baseless arguments because it's a red herring effect, and it's not getting down to the it's not getting down to, as a corporation, of governance for the people, for the domestic people in which you are responsible for. Is you have the territorial rights of the land. What is going on with the sovereign rights for the people, the protection for the people, and the people to be able to have life and liberty in their in their, and be able to operate in their divinity unmolested, and their rights not be leaned upon. Those are the things that should be that should be addressed, that are not being addressed as a governance corporation. Those are the things that's not being addressed. What is taking place with the finances of this service corporation, in which the people have been grossly unjustly taxed against. So the same thing in which their forefathers no longer wanted to be a part of the oppression of their king, we're at the same crossroad with this service corporation, because this service governance, with the taxation of the people, the unjust taxation of the people, and also the unjust wars. We're at that same crossroad. 250 years later, history never repeats itself. It just always put on a new book and a new book cover. It's the same pages within there. It's operating from that same manual. So, and because when you look at that, when you look at a joint stock company operation, let's look at that. It's a business structure where you have those multiple investors. When we talk about the investors and adventurers that pool their money together, right? They'll pool their money together. They have a what you call a risk share. So you have other nations that have risk share. And I talked about you also, and with that risk share, they created what you call the New York Stock Exchange. But the New York Stock Exchange Foundation is created through what you call the Buttonwood Agreement. And that Buttonwood Agreement dealt with those brokers saying, okay, if I don't overextend my commission price, we're all going to agree to have a favorable understanding of our commission price. That's the creation of the New York Stock Exchange. But what's being exchanged is the commodities, the natural resources of the land. So it's the people of the land, the Aborigine people of the land. They are poor because they do not have access to their resources to be able to set the own weights and meets and bounds of their resources, such as Burkina Faso just learned that for years they were only receiving $1 billion from France of their natural resources. $1 billion. Now, when they removed France as their occupier, they service governance, they colonizers, within 3 years, they have increased their flow of income and revenue from $1 billion to $300 billion. So that is the importance of having control of the land. It's the land is where the wealth is at, and that's what's not being stated. It is the land and where all the wealth lie. So as long as we allow a service governance corporation to have territorial jurisdictional rights of the land, the Aborigine people will always be poor financially. It's just that simple. Because what you were in custodial control over, though that information that has been usurped by someone else who's receiving the wealth and benefit of that. So everyone is out here saying, go buy silver, go buy gold. You're going to buy your own. Somebody would take your Federal Reserve commercial paper and exchange it for a natural resource that is divinely lawful currency doesn't make sense. Get your land back. Our people must start, instead of talking about sovereignty, operate in a space of sovereignty by going and looking into those spaces through the Bureau of Land Management and looking historically for your land, for your ancestral land patterns, and for as little as, sometimes as low as $33. You have the documents to claim this is my ancestral land, and you take back custody and control, because those land patents are the highest are the highest form of information of saying that this is the land of my ancestors that was removed, and I'm coming back to claim that. That is coming back on the land in your sovereign position. Not just talking about being sovereign, it's about coming back into a sovereign position. And that is how simple those things could be done. But they don't want to talk about the land patents. They don't want you to start talking about the land patents. That's what the movie Zootopia, it hid to Zootopia 2, it hid the land under ice from the snakes. And through the investigative journalism, through investigation policing, there was the bunny who helped the snake recover her inheritance, the land that was under ice, that was buried under ice. That, sorry for spoiler alert, but that's what Zootopia 2 was about. It was about, the message was about finding and being restored back to your land, to your riches. And then as a nation, it wouldn't be just United States, Russia, China, France. It'll be all the restored nations now. They have a say so about the wealth of the resources that's in the land they have always had the custodian of, because it's laid down. Because until that, and if we can just continue with the paperwork of name correction, the paperwork of battling against right to travel, this is our land, but you're not going back to identify the land which is yours. What's this conversation about sovereignty is about? It's still on the reparations, the conversation about reparations. You're still in the jurisdiction of your usurper. So the conversation about reparation is even a mute conversation. You can't repair individuals. You repair a nation. Nations are repaired. A nation that has the custodian of the land, that's what's repaired. So that's the conversation that that's not being discussed. So you get all these other red herring conversations and distractions that's taking place on the feed. But I'm here to tell you now, just another messenger, that the conversation is about the restoration of the land. That's what the conversation should be about: restoring the land, restoring the nation. Now, I know that we have went over our hour mark. I would like, we're just now getting back, and we're gonna go further. We're gonna go a little bit further into that. But like I said, continue to like, share, and subscribe over on our YouTube page at Just Another Messenger. You can also follow us on X at JAM_404 podcast. And if you're someone who would like to be a part of the show, please send a friendly email to justanothermessengerpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, continue to support the work that we're doing here at Just Another Messenger. We're doing something new. We're going to do a little bit more commentating. We're going to do a little bit more connecting the dots, as we always. We'll have some information up with the slideshows. I was going to try, didn't want to be so heavy on the slideshows coming into a new fiscal corporate year. Because as we all know, if you're understanding of the cosmology, the new year is when the new seasons come in, and that is after the vernal equinox, and that is March the 21st, when you have new life being restored. So I'm going to say happy series in the midheaven to all. And I want to thank you for tuning in, and continue to tune in each and every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Just Another Messenger. And also, if you like to, we have our merchandise out there on our Etsy store at justanothermessenger.etsy.com. Please go and support us through the merchandise, the ebooks we have on our store. We also have coffee mugs. We also have a nice canvas bag to say, colonization will start up. We're going to be putting more information out there. We're going to also be rolling out some other avenues as well as Just Another Messenger. As we said, we're growing. We're still finding our lane within this podcast space. So just continue to hold on and be with us. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and see you next Wednesday. All right.
Yo, tuned in, it's that time again. Welcome to the show under the bright zen. Just another messenger bringing the news with the beat in your soul. Let's light up these views. We're diving deep, no time for snooze. Grab your headphones, let me share the clues. In a world so loud, where voices collide, we find the rhythm, let the truth be our guide. Hit that play button, feel the vibe. Every second counts, let's take that ride. From stories untold to laughs we share. Just another messenger, we're always there. Hi. It's a jam, just sit back and unwind. With our flow and our style, it's one of a kind. Life's a mix, just like a DJ spins. We serve you the truth where the journey begins. It's a jam, we're all in this together. Sound waves linking us, no matter the weather. Just another messenger, we keeping it tight. With every single drop, we rise and ignite. Yeah.